It's now, aren't we?
We so
Hey,
are.
hey, hey. We are live. Yeah. Just saying to Ange, we're all pros at this now. How are you, girls? Um, I don't know if anybody's there yet. When you hit the button, it takes a little while for the
Does.
girls to tune in. And got the best news of the week before this session. So pardon me, Liz Kubler, who is Cosy Confidence crew member, awesome woman. You know, we've been mates for a few years now. She's had a really tough 10 days. She went in for what was potentially a reasonably simple op, and she ended up getting an infection and staying in hospital for a long time. She's had a shitty, shitty week, and she's on her way home today. So she texted me to say that she won't be tuning in like she does all the time because she's heading home. So big rest up for gorgeous Lizzie. Sending you kisses. Here's Diane Steele. I'm here, but you are frozen. Oh.
Oh, are
Does
we?
anybody else think I'm frozen?
No, you look okay to me.
Am I? Yeah. Okay. Geez, Diane, I hope that improves, darling. We don't want any frozen Anges. Well, hello, 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 everybody. We are here for session number, I don't know, it must be about 20 now. I don't know, maybe you know Ange. But Ange is here today because on this Lunchtime Live, we are talking about the topic of health. And Ange has been on before talking about our immunity. And today we're touching on, oh, thanks, Cheryl. We're touching on another aspect of our health, which I know for many of us and many of you watching will strike a chord. It is belly bloat. And the beautiful women here in our community, I'm not sure Ange will go through all this, but whether it's an age thing, a stage thing, you know, menopause, bloody menopause is responsible for so much. But it's a big thing. Yeah. And most of the women I serve from a COSI's point of view and fitting point of view, the belly is an area of great concern. You know, it's a point of where they feel less confident about their body as well. And I'm sure this is a contributing factor. So I can't wait to speak to you today about all that, Ange, and I know the girls are keen. So let's rock and roll. We've got quite a few here ready to go, so I think we're good. Go, Ange. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. So with bloating, there's a couple of aspects we need to look at. So there's four things really, and they are what we eat, the way we eat food, our ability to break down the food, and our bacterial balance. So they're the big four topics that I see most often. I think there's a couple of tips to remember. Over 50, if you have something that happens like this, that's a change for you, I would seek medical investigation. I'll say that up front because that's a red flag for me. And so whether that means you're more bloated than usual, your bowel movements have changed from, you know, going normally every day and now all of a sudden you're not, whether there's blood or lots of mucus in the stool, they're things that I think are worth an investigation. Because something's changed, and it's better to check it out straight away than wait to see if it's going to resolve itself. So that's my first tip around that. And so we'll start with, I guess, Anita, what we eat.
Yeah, or maybe even back it up a bit, Ange, because what is bloating itself? Like what is the definition of bloating?
So bloating is just essentially when your abdomen's distended, and it's likely to be from us not being, well, from those four categories. Our bacterial balance is wrong. It's the food that we're eating and we can't break it down. And it's our ability to break down food because as we age, we lose our hydrochloric acid, which is what in our stomach. So that helps us stop bacteria coming in on food, so stops us getting parasites and pathogens, but it also breaks down the food that we eat so we can, so it can move through our digestive system without giving us that big fat bloat that none of us like. And it is common at times to have bloating, but it shouldn't be sustained. You know, you shouldn't wake up every day feeling like you've swallowed a basketball. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Because that was where I was a little bit unsure because I know for me, I watch my tummy, you know, change in size and shape quite frequently, and I guess as women, we're used to that from our periods or whatever else, certainly pregnancy. But I wasn't sure whether there was a frequency to it that was also in the definition and what to look out for.
No, look, I think it changes. It's a pretty variable thing. If you eat more vegetables, you'll be more bloated, because we don't, depending on the vegetables, and I'll talk about this sort of when we get to what we eat, we don't always have enzymes to break down the components in the vegetables that we eat. So I think that's a really important thing for us to get our head around. And if we've never had lots of fibre and we start eating more fibre in the terms of fruit and veg and those sorts of things, that will change how our body reacts to foods. Beans, I get this from everybody. Oh, can't do beans because they make me bloated and farty. And that's for many reasons. One is for the enzymes in it. One is the way they're prepared, especially if we're using canned ones. And two is, or the third thing probably around that is, we don't eat beans as a population very often, and we should, because they're so great for us. But because your body's not used to it, when you have them, they're going to give you more gas. And that's just the nature of the food that we're eating. And so we forget about those sorts of things. And the longer you eat it in smaller doses, the less likely you are to experience bloating around that. So I think there's a couple of things that we'll talk about as we go. So let's start with what we eat. Are you good with that? So lots of foods will increase our bloating. High sulfur foods, so things that produce hydrogen sulfide. So things like eggs will cause people to have smelly, to be more bloated and to give you smelly gas as well. So, eggs, cruciferous vegetables, like those ones we all love, the good estrogen clearing ones, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, kale, bok choy, all of those ones, they're really great. But they contain an oligosaccharide in them called raffinose. And as humans, we don't have the enzymes to break down that raffinose, so it passes through our stomach and into our small intestines undigested pretty much. And so what happens once it gets there, the bacteria go, oh my God, this is lunch, and they just go berserk, and it then increases our own level of gas and bloating. So foods like dried fruit, dried and sulfured fruit like apricots.
A lot of dried fruit's got a lot of sulfate in it, hasn't it?
So and wine, even wine's another one, because it's generally got sulfites in it. So those sorts of things. Eggs, surprisingly, things like cucumber, celery, apples, onions and garlic, a lot of people react to. Protein powders, a lot of people react to. Soy, sugar-free treats, anything that contains a sugar alcohol. Like I had a lady the other day see me, and she said, every time I eat those little Ricola lollies, I get really bloated, and then I get diarrhea from them. And that's because they're an alcohol sugar, and our bodies don't process alcohol sugars very well. They're generally, you find them in things that are sugar-free. So erythritol, sorbitol, mannitol, all of the tols.
All the tols, right.
Yeah. So they are really big offenders for bloating, because we just cannot, as humans, break them down. And that's problematic. So that's the biggest thing I'd say in what we eat. And different foods, like I said before, we just don't have the capacity to break down. So that's one of the reasons. The next reason would be the way we eat. Once upon a time, we used to sit as a family and we used to say grace, and saying grace at the dinner table. Anybody who's watched Little House on the Prairie, one of my favorites, they would come in from the field. They would come in from the field and they would sit down and they would hold hands, and everybody breathe in and breathe out. So that wasn't necessarily about the religion. It was about getting them out of their fight or flight state in the field all day into their rest and digest non-dominant sympathetic nervous system. So what happens is, and in our life that we have now, we're rushing to appointments, we're eating in the car. I see this all the time, people standing up at their kitchen counter, stuffing things in, or we're watching our phone, or we're looking at the telly as we're eating. So this leads to a couple of things. The faster we're eating, the more air we take into our body. And when there's air, you're not giving your body the opportunity to break down the food as good as we can. The other thing I think that I see quite a bit is that we're all really busy. And when we're busy, we tend to not chew as much.
Yep.
And so when we don't chew, we don't turn on the digestive enzymes we need or the hydrochloric acid we need to break down the particles. So essentially, when we chew, we should be able to pull the food out of our mouth and have a look at it and not recognize one single piece of food in there before we swallow it.
That's
and I know,
my dad chews.
Yeah.
It's not pretty to watch. And it's certainly not nice when you see it on the rim of the wine glass either, but that's how he chews. Sorry, Dad,
but you should chew for a long time because that really starts off your whole digestive process. So, and one of the other things that I think too is when we are watching TV or we're looking at our phone, we're not really paying attention. We're just eating. We're not mindfully eating. And then we can tend to overeat. And when we overeat, that food sits in our stomach for a lot longer. And this is a big problem I see for a lot of us. We all overeat pretty much. And what happens is the food sits in our stomach for a long time because when it goes from your stomach into your small intestines, it goes through it 1 teaspoon at a time. So imagine the meal you've just had for dinner is this whopper. And then your body's got to digest it. You can see that at 1 teaspoon at a time, it's going to take a long time to get through. So the longer it sits, the more it ferments. The more it ferments, the more bloating we have. Imagine an analogy I'd like to use around this is imagine when you brew your own beer, if you've ever seen that. If you put too much of it in the bottle and leave the lid on it for too long, it'll explode. And that's sort of a bit what happens to our gut bugs. They gorge themselves and then they do that explosion, which leads to more gas and more bloating for us, which is problematic. So
there's an opportunity there, isn't there? I mean, we are in the forced to go slow part now in the universe and everywhere with this whole COVID lockdown and everything. Maybe we should all make a conscious effort now that we are home, start that good habit, take our time when we eat, gather when we can, take our time to eat and take it more slowly and chew our food better.
And I think the thing we need to remember about this is our emotions play a really big part in how our digestive system works. Because if we're sad or happy or any of those things, we tend to be in that fight or flight response. So when we are, or even depressed or anxious, we tend to be in that fight or flight response. Or if we're angry at somebody and then we start to have a meal, whenever you do that, you'll go, oh, gee, I've got reflux or I've got heartburn or I've got bloating. And that's because you are shutting down those enzymes that break the food down when it comes in. And that's probably a good segue to the next step about our ability to break down the food. So as we age, so we have the hydrochloric acid in our stomach, that breaks down all the protein. It drops them back as minuscule as it can be so we can absorb it. What happens as we age is our digestive fire, which I like to say is our hydrochloric acid, starts to decrease. And also over our lifetime, it can have periods where it doesn't work very well. For example, if we're iron deficient, if we're zinc deficient, if we are B12 deficient, all of those things impact how our digestive system works. So if we are, we're aging, we've got menopausal issues, we're not getting a really good whack of the stick, really. Our digestive enzymes are decreasing as well, and so is our hydrochloric acid. So and then add on top of that, if you get celiac disease or a pancreatic thing, or you got diabetes, those things all impact how we break down food that we eat. And we sometimes forget about that. And the thing going back to chewing too, chewing is one of the most critical things we can do to reduce bloating. And we forget. So I say to people, when you sit down, take 3 deep breaths. My key thing to clients is take a knife and fork, take your first bite, and then pop the knife and fork on the table, put your hands between your knees, and then chew for about 20 to 30 times. So if you do that in itself will do 2 things. It'll cut down the amount of food you eat because you're really slowing down the signal, your signal in your brain, your leptin, catches up to your the thing, to your satiety in your body. So because what tends to happen, our body will take it, but our brain can't catch up. So it's one of the best things to help with losing weight is to pop your knife and fork down between bites. And it's really, really hard. It's so hard. Don't be tempted to pick it up before you've chewed. And you will notice when you do that a couple of times, you'll go, oh, I really don't chew very much. I really chew about 3 or 4 or 5 times and then I swallow. But if you put your hands between your knees, you'll be absolutely amazed at how hard it is to chew. So that's one of the things we can do. Diets that are really high in processed foods, they lack the enzymes that we need to, or they lack the nutrients that like the iron and the zinc and the B12 and all that, and that reduces our enzyme production as well. So we need these nutrients to make those enzymes. So that's a big factor. The next one I think is really important, and we all suffer from it. Stress, whether it's caused from something pathologically that we're having or that it's chronic stress in our body, it reduces our ability to make those digestive enzymes and repair them, because sometimes they stop working, and we can generally, for example, and take iron as one. If we're low in iron, it's a real chicken or egg scenario. Does our hydrochloric acid not work because we're low in iron? Or is our iron not working because we're low in hydrochloric acid? So we get caught in a loop. So you really need to fix those things as well going forward. And when we are in a stress situation, in that fight or flight response, our body doesn't prioritize digestion. So essentially, when we are at fight or flight, our body sends all the blood to our arms and to our legs so we can run away, essentially. And Anita, that has been with us since we were cavemen. And that's what's made us safe. That's what's protected us. That's what's been able to have generation after generation after generation, because our body knows how to do that. And I think we forget that at times. So when we're standing at the car or standing at the kitchen bench, shoveling it in before we rush the kids out of the door to send them to school, that really is a big cause of bloating right there. And I think that's an interesting thing. And the last one, I think, is low hydrochloric acid. And I've talked about this. As we age, our hydrochloric acid production becomes less. So I would say to people, if you do start having bloating and you get it checked out, that's a place that I would start. And just taking something as simple as apple cider vinegar and water before, about 20 or 30 minutes before meals. Bitters, eat bitter foods. Once upon a time, we ate bitter foods like there was no tomorrow. And the good news is that Campari is an aperitif, so that counts to me as a bitter food, sort of.
The Italians just know, don't they?
They do.
They just know.
They just do. And so doing that before you have a meal, that will activate our own digestive enzymes. Having a rocket salad before you eat your main meal, because rocket is a bitter and it stimulates our digestive enzymes and our salivary glands, and that turns our hydrochloric acid on. So all those things will help. Because if we don't have hydrochloric acid, we don't have digestive enzymes, essentially. We can't break food down. It will sit in our belly, and then you go on to get the next thing I'm going to talk about is the digestive, the bacterial balance. So that's what happens when the food sits for a long time, and then that will cause problems too. So did you want to go over anything in that section that we should talk about before we move on?
Yeah, because there was a lot that you gave us then. So if we just was just trying to take some notes for the girls as you were talking. So while we're on that hydrochloric acid point, so what were the foods that we could take that would increase our hydrochloric acid and our ability to digest?
So bitter foods. Like things like rocket, kale, radicchio, dandelion leaves are fantastic because if anybody's ever had dandelion leaves, they are so bitter. And that just activates our own digestive enzymes. So having things like that, things that have you can actually buy digestive bitters. from a health food shop. So they are really good to take about 15 or 20 minutes. Having apple cider vinegar and water about 20 minutes before you eat, because that stimulates our own digestive process as well. So all those things are pretty easy to do.
Okay, and I'm half Italian, right? So a lot of what you're saying now rings true for me. And the other thing that I know we Italians tend to do that I notice we don't do so much in Aussie households here, but salad is always served with a meal, usually 9 times out of 10. So when you have your pasta, you have your salad as well. And they typically finish the meal with a salad. So I don't know whether the order is wrong, but that's salad is and it's had separately. You don't actually put it on the plate with all the protein and everything. In my experience, you have it as a separate thing. And things like radicchio, I grew up on that stuff. My nonna used to give me that. And
artichoke as well. Artichoke's really great.
Yeah.
Well.
And is fennel another one that's a good digestive?
Yep, it's a digestive. Yep, all those things.
We have it all the time. So and low and slow, that whole philosophy around.
And we've lost our way. I think we've really lost our way with that because we don't, and we no longer think about food as, what the way that Italians think of food, or even the French. It's long and slow. We sit, we enjoy, we have company, we have, chats. It's that whole process rather than, get it in our face.
And we have sleep after a glass of red wine,
Yeah.
Which also helps.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And then getting into the last thing is about our bacteria. In every gut, we all have about 130 or 140 bacteria each. And in your family, so in your family, you're likely to have similar ones to your family, but you have some that are just unique to you. And eventually what they would like to do is be able to identify us through our gut bacteria. So that's not as far off as we think it is, actually. So I think it's good to remember that things upset our bacterial balance. So antibiotics, and that could upset our microbial balance for up to 4 years, and some species may never recover from one single dose of antibiotics. So imagine if you've had to be on 4 or 5 antibiotics one after the other, that's likely to cause some dysbiosis, which just means an imbalance of bad bacteria over good bacteria. So, and having a totally Western diet that's really high processed, high fat, lots of sugar foods, the ones we all love, doesn't help with that. So for a lot of people, and a lot of people I see in clinic, women especially, we don't eat enough fiber. So the recommended amount of fiber for women is 28 grams a day, which is quite a lot when you see it on a plate. And most of us don't have that, because that's how our bacteria grows. If we don't have that, those fiber sources, and I see the big trend towards smoothies, and I love a smoothie, but there's a couple of things that you miss when you have a smoothie all the time. And I had a client recently that was having 2 smoothies a day. So she was having beautiful unprocessed foods in them, but it still impacts how we absorb those nutrients. One is when we have a smoothie, we don't actually chew. And like I talked about before, you need to chew to turn on those enzymes. So that's problematic. So if you're having a smoothie, make it thick enough that you can chew it. And the second thing about smoothies is when you are, or one of them, she was having a green juice. So it's the green juice that's problematic, because when you juice stuff, if you're taking out all the pulp, you're only having one sort of fiber, and you need both. Because the bacteria love to have both, because one of them we absorb, the other one goes right through us, and the bacteria eat it. So I think that's problematic. And prebiotic foods, we probably tend not to eat so much of those as we used to, with people now not eating garlic and onion as much, and things like that, artichokes and things like that. We tend not to eat so much of that anymore. So I think it's really good to remember that our bacteria that we have is what really controls our whole health in the form of, our whole body. It contributes to everything, our hormones, our neurotransmitters for our mood and our brain, our immune system, how we carry our weight, all of those things, our brain fog, the whole lot. So it's an interesting place to look. And the last thing that I didn't mention, sorry, and this is the last thing. So, and if you've picked up a parasite and you don't know that you have a parasite, they can also increase your gas and bloating. So that's one of the things that you should go and have checked out straight away if you've never been bloated before and all of a sudden you are.
Because it's sustained bloating, is that what you mean?
Yeah, yep. If you've got days where you go and you're just not, it's just not going away, that's worth checking out, because people, and I've heard people say, yeah, but I live in the city. Most people that live in Sydney have blastocystis or dientamoeba, just because they do. It's just one of the things we pick up here. It doesn't necessarily, it's the root cause of your problem, but certainly can make a difference to how you process things and how you digest things. So, but
do we pick things like that up from the soil that food's grown in, or from water, or how do you pick up something like that?
All of those things you said. But the other thing is, generally, if our digestion is good, when we put food in our mouth, our hydrochloric acid here in our stomach stops us from, stops that from colonizing. And I think we've lost a bit of that digestive fire due to what we eat, how we eat, and all those sorts of things. So when you have lower digestive fire, you will pick up a parasite. It's just how life is. If you suffer from reflux, that's likely because your hydrochloric acid's not enough. Contrary to what doctors say, they say you have too much, but I rarely see people who have too much hydrochloric acid. It's generally the other way.
Wow.
And it's the assortment of food we eat. I see people who are low carbohydrate diets and things like that. That will cause us bloating as well, because we're starving gut bacteria. So sad but true.
Yeah.
So there's lots of things.
There's so much to know, isn't there? And just on that point, a couple of quick things. To get that 28 grams of fibre, because going back to the fibre thing, I'm sorry, I'm mid-comment here, I'm being very selfish. With the fibre, what are just maybe 3 foods that are higher in fibre that we should be having in our diets if we can?
Okay, so the 3 things that I would say, and everybody's going to hate me for these. Don't hate me. I'm just giving you.
No, we won't hate you, Ange. Go.
Legumes. Everybody went so anti-legume. Legumes are great because they are really super high in fibre. But my tip to everybody before is don't go out and have a big bowl of beans or a big bowl of red lentils. If you haven't had them for a long time, start with a tablespoon and work your way up over the course of the week, because they will cause you gas and bloating. Beans would be my number 2. And again, with beans, in Australia, if you use a tin of canned beans, so normally when I get people to prepare beans from scratch, you put them into a glass bowl, and you put some acidulated water, so some lemon juice or some apple cider vinegar, you let them soak, and then you pour the water out, so all those anti-nutrients you're getting rid of. So that's all the stuff that makes you really farty, really gassy, really bloated. And then you put them into a pot, put fresh water in. That's how you make them at home. When you buy them in a can, they put the beans in dry and they pressure cook them. So, and then you're tipping them out of the other end and using them. So all that stuff that you would have tipped out that makes you gassy and farty and bloaty stays in the can. So my suggestion to you is you use a can. That's terrific. I'd rather you use a can than not. Is rinse them, double rinse them, and then cook them or do whatever you've got to do. I think that's a really important thing to remember. And that's why so many people go, I can't have beans. And the third one is vegetables. Vegetables are good for us. And sometimes we stop eating them because we do get a bit of gas and bloating. I would dig a little bit deeper. It's not always the vegetables. Maybe it's because you've not got a lot of hydrochloric acid. Maybe it's because you're rushing and trying to eat too fast. Maybe it's you're in fight or flight and your sympathetic dominant nervous system, and that's giving you the gas and the bloating. So just dig a little bit deeper there. I think that's worth doing.
And you are a font of knowledge on all this. Isn't she great, girls? I think there is so much in everything that you're saying.
So much.
Hard to take it all in. So maybe go back and listen again and take your own notes. Another thing you could do is, if this is a topic that you're particularly interested in and you want to know more, couple of things. Ange has got a little, 3 or 4 page little ebook that you've done? Yeah.
And it's pretty much the same information, actually.
Same stuff, right. So I'll put the link in here now, and you can see where to get that from Ange's site.
And if you do have to give me your name and address, but if you sign up and then unsign, I have no problem with that. I won't take it personally.
Look, I don't think the girls will mind, Ange, but thanks for saying that. So I've just put the link in here now. And then you're also offering a 15-minute free chat. Do you want to just quickly tell the girls about that?
Yeah, so I offer a free 15-minute consultation, giving you some ideas on where you can go, so what's happening with you. And it would normally be as simple as, you tell me what's happening. I go, well, I think first place start at the doctor, then do this, then try this. And then if none of that works, then come for a consultation. But it just gives you some ideas to do, because you've seen how many components, those 4 components, while they sound quite easy, what we eat, the way we eat, our ability to break down the food, and our bacterial balance, there's quite a lot of work in that, to figure that out for ourselves. And we're just not, you shouldn't have to figure all of that out by yourself, because it's too hard. And I've trained for 10 years for that, and sometimes it's letting somebody else hear your story when you're so close to it. You then can, and then I can go, I can tell you what's going on there. So I think that's beneficial, and you can sign up to that at my website, which is just digestivedetective.com.au, and you can pick a time and a date that suits you. It's on the phone, and then I just work you through it. And generally, I do say to people quite often, well, you need to go to the doctor and then go this next step, because I think it's always prejudicious to get checked out by your doctor if it's something that's new or it's been happening for a long time and you have symptoms that are not particularly normal for you. And I think we sometimes forget that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just typing that in now too. Your .com.au or .com?
.com.au.
Right, there we go. So a couple of options there, girls, if you'd like to know more. And that was awesome. There are ways we can beat the bloat. And maybe right here, right now, we start with going slow. I like that idea.
And chewing more.
Going slow. Hydrochloric acid, bacteria, all that stuff.
Make a comment how hard, when you try that go slow chewing, how hard it is, because it is really super hard.
I'm going to try that tonight, actually. I'm going to try that. So that's a great tip. Thanks for that.
No
All
worries.
right, girls, thanks for tuning in. That brings our lunchtime lives for this week to an end. We are coming into next week with 3 more awesome women with talking other bits and pieces about, I think, movement and travel and maybe some mindset stuff as well. I have to check. I don't even know. I've got to look. But awesome women. We're back again Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Have a great weekend, and look after yourselves. Take care of your guts.
Good advice. Thanks, Anita.
Thanks, Ange. See you, girls. Bye.